Thank you for having us here today. I'm an Armenian, but I'll speak English today. I present openDemocracy, which is an independent global media platform with a main office in London. Next slide, please. So I've always thought that Europe is the best part of the world in which to be a woman. And my assumption is not baseless. According to one of the latest surveys, European countries are among the best places for women to live, thanks to their high regard for human rights, gender equality, and safety. Given this, I was truly startled when last year our team of feminist investigative journalists discovered that in at least 8 European countries, women were provided with unproven, unethical treatment to reverse medical abortions. And these activities were pushed by US religious extremists. This is just one example among many showing how the old continent is failing to ensure people's sexual and reproductive health and rights. Next slide, please. We have started to investigate the organized anti-gender movement since 2017, and we have seen that for the last 15 years around the world, anti-democratic actors started to use their anti-democratic tactics to pursue their anti-democratic goals that would shut huge numbers of people out of human rights and equality and would reverse historic progress that has been made in recent decades. So when we are talking about the transnational backlash against sexual and reproductive rights, we should remember that this is not something that is uncoordinated or an abstract phenomenon. As Neil Data mentioned, they are very organized. They have organized networks. They have big money, carefully planned strategies, ambitious goals to block or roll back human rights by influencing elections, courts, education and health system, policymakers, and the public. Next slide, please. So last year, we looked at the international spending of 28 US Christian rights groups that oppose sexual and reproductive rights and found that overall, Europe was remaining the region where the most money was spent. Furthermore, anti-gender funding in Europe has increased dramatically over the past decade. Between 2007 and 2019, US Christian rights organizations allocated more than $98 million to spend in the continent, mainly fueling campaigns against women and LGBT rights, sex education, and abortion. And this number is an underestimation because these organizations or some of these organizations do not register as NGOs, but as churches, and therefore they are under no obligation to disclose their financial data. Next slide, please. So on your screens, you can see some of the biggest US spenders in the region. Billy Graham Evangelistic Association, one of the biggest spenders, but it changed its registration from a nonprofit to a church in 2014 and has had not to close its foreign spending since then. The next most active group is the American Center for Law and Justice, Alliance Defending Freedom, which recorded its highest ever spending in Europe. Also in 2019, they have recorded spending in Eurasia for the first time. Also, Federalist Society, which is a secular and conservative legal group highly influential in US judiciary politics. Next slide, please. However, there is a little or zero transparency about how US groups use their money overseas, where this money comes from, and how much money goes to a specific country. Next slide, please. Anyways, we have followed some of this dark money around the world for many years and have revealed that key targets of this funding include European courts. European offices of ACLJ and ADF have intervened in dozens of European court cases against sexual and reproductive rights. When Poland's constitutional court voted to ban abortion in cases of fetal defects, ACLJ submitted arguments in favor of new restrictions. This is something that Neil Data was mentioning before. And ADF has intervened also in the European Court to defend Italy's ban on same-sex marriages and civil unions. Here are some other strategies. As I mentioned before, they have been targeting women with misinformation about their health and rights. They have been sending teams of lobbyists to Brussels to influence EU officials. They have been supporting campaigns against LGBT rights, funding a network of grassroots anti-abortion campaigns, and they have been hosting major events in Europe, attended by hundreds of far-right politicians and activists. Next slide, please. So far, it has been a huge secrecy around the origin of this dark money coming from the US. But last year, our team have managed to find out that there are at least two main sources of this money. The first one is National Christian Foundation, which is the single largest source of money for pro-life and anti-LGBT movements over the past 15 years. And the next one is Fidelity Charitable, which provided mainly small grants, but hundreds of small grants to US right-wing groups. Next slide, please. I'll not go into the details, so you can explore top-line data on US Christian right organization spending globally using the tool on our website. There are filters that you could use to find the data per region, per organization, per category, etc. Next slide, please. So what is next? I'm a journalist, I'm an investigative journalist, and it's not my job to make assumptions or have personal opinions. My work is based on facts. And based on these facts and our findings, I think that these organizations are not going to stop. Anti-gender movements have money, they have plan, they have determination. And as far as I understand, they are interested in long-term wins. They wanted to build global advantage in long-time horizon. Also, as Neil Data mentioned, there is a urgency for their financial transparency, because far-right organizations are part of a civil society, but they are not interested in strengthening human rights, but want to undermine them instead. They do not reveal information about their finances, and I don't think that they will do until they are forced to do. And who can do that? I think that the answer is in Europe. There are EU institutions, national governments. They could demand greater financial transparency of transnational actors. But will they take action, and will they prove that the old continent still has the highest regard for human rights, gender equality, and safety? I don't know. Thank you.